Hi, I'm Tiki Gene. Welcome to Tiki Gene's Place. This episode is not a lawn service video episode, even though I love cutting grass and stuff like that. It's about the impeachment of Donald J. Trump. Are they really going to impeach the president? Or should the question be how and why? I may mow lawns for a living, but I'm not stupid. I know my politics, and I got something to tell you. This whole impeachment thing, it's not just about Donald Trump. It's about a lot of stuff, and it's been coming for a very long time. About 10 days ago, I decided to start posting every day about something, while I'm dealing with my lawn service business stuff. And what I found out yesterday was appalling, that they want to impeach the president. Let's start with divided. There's a lot of things that are divided. There's people who stay informed about politics. There's people who don't. A lot of people rely on the fact when they're running in politics that most people don't stay informed. And plus, to be informed, how? Are you watching cable news? Are you listening to your local news station? Are you listening to talk radio? I can tell you right now that most cars I drive by, they are blasting country music, rap music, rock music. But here's the other thing. Okay, CNN, MSNBC, Fox. It depends on what you watch. You get a different variation. A variation of what? A story. So now there's another divide. Talk radio versus no talk radio. Then we've got people paying attention, not paying attention. We have cable news, but also local news. If you ever hear those montages where every single news channel across the country uses the same basic key points, same words almost. Bombshell, this, that, and so forth, at 11. They all say the same damn thing. Why? Well, the answer is simple. To keep you divided. If everybody knew what was going on in the world, then, wow, we wouldn't have a problem, would we? And you have to have problems. That's what government's there to fix. But they don't really fix them. Well, at least until we got Donald Trump. There's one reason why he needs to go. Now, before we dive into impeachment, there's a couple clarifiers for you. On the $100 bill, we have good old Benjamin Franklin. He wasn't the president, but he was one of the founding fathers. And at the end of the Constitutional Convention, a woman reporter asked him, "Sir, what do we have?" He said, "A republic, if you can keep it." So, for clarifying, let's start with basics. Do you know who your mayor is? Do you know who your city council person is? Do you know who your congressperson is? What district do you live in? What ward do you live in? Who your governor is? Most people know who the president is in your state. You also have legislative branches. You have your House of Representatives and you have your Senate. Federally, you have your Congress as well, which is two houses. The Senate, House of Representatives. You notice they always say the Senate, and then House of Representatives people, they go by congressperson. That's just because it's the lower house, but it's a co-equal branch with the executive, which is the president's side, and then the legislative, which is your Congress, and then you have your judicial, which AOC may not have known. But the judicial, of course, is your Supreme Court, which also you have in your own personal state, your state's Supreme Court. Leave a comment below if you know that information, because I'll guarantee you, most people don't. They don't know, but they know who the president is. Yeah, you can really change things by looking at the top of the mountain and screaming up there, huh? Well, most of the stuff happens locally, and that's where the democracy is. Our federal government is a constitutional republic, so when we get to impeachment, I want you to have these clarifiers first. See, they call these the laboratory of states. Each state gets to decide what that state's going to be like, look like, act like, and we all have that opportunity to vote in masses, in droves, or not at all. And the thing is, it's always been about, can we do stuff for ourselves, or do we need more government to help us do that? You can donate to charity, or you can donate to the government. Charity may get the job done, or they might be corrupt. But you have the opportunity to look into that charity and decide if you want to give them that money. Government, if you're already given to charity, but a bunch of people decide they want the government to hand out the charity, then you don't get to decide because you're taxed. And that money is supposed to then go towards whatever kind of relief, aid, or whatever. Well, again, a laboratory of states, and the world is watching. That's because we are the only free constitutional republic, democracy, where you have the Bill of Rights that no one else really has, because ours come from God. You don't have to believe in God. It's just people don't even know the Bill of Rights anymore. And with these rights, they call them unalienable. Well, check this out. It's not more power for the government. It's to take power away from the government. You see, I can go up to you and I can talk political stuff. You can come up to me and you can talk about stuff. As long as you're not hurting me and I'm not hurting you, we can speak. We can express ourselves, First Amendment, any way we'd like to. You know, as long as we're not ticking off someone else with their rights. Now, I'm not going to go through all the amendments, but I will tell you this. Another one, the Second Amendment. If you look at the coastal states, and then you can look at California in general, New York, and getting rid of people's ability to have their weapons. Well, check this out. If, let's say you were able to accomplish that, guess what? If I was a foe of the United States, let's say a foreign country that wanted to go to war with us, like Iran, they know exactly where they can send their warships. Oh, but we have our military. Well, there's another reason for the Second Amendment, the true reason. Not just the fact that we can protect ourselves from our neighbors, or we can go hunting, or that we can be invaded. It's also for the fact that if our government becomes treasonous, which is why I'm getting to this impeachment stuff today. Well, yeah, but if we had a treasonous government, then, and we had guns, so what? They've got bombs. Well, our military is made up of people like us, for the most part. But it is starting to change. And this country is starting to go more socialist. But there's a reason for that. And we also have a dumbing down of society as well. So some of those people also make it to the military. So there's two ways of looking at it. So with the media, basically we only had a couple outlets a long while back. Your newspaper, and then 3 various channels on normal TV. Then you had cable. So then he had CNN, and it was all the same talking points, always. And then when it was Reagan, oh, he's a doof, he's an idiot, trickle-down economics. Well, that's all they would report. They would report that he was a doofus. It turns out he was a good president. A lot of people loved him. But the thing is, the CIA director that he nominated as vice president, he may have been a conservative, but he was also a globalist. In the future, you can ask me if you watch this, and this is kind of getting you to the point of why isn't he at impeachment yet. Well, you can also ask me about Nixon and his resignation, J. Edgar Hoover, FBI, corruption, CIA, all that kind of crap. Well, today we're just going to focus on this, and we can start with George H.W. Bush, where he, like I said, he was a director of the CIA, he became vice president, and then it started to become clear when he became president. We were beginning a global New World Order. With most people having busy lives, not paying attention, not really being informed, either because of media or just because they go about their daily stuff blasting their radio. Hey, why not? People aren't paying attention, kind of like Lovely. You don't know who your mayor is, most likely. You don't know who your city council person is. Oh yeah, wasn't I talking about Second Amendment too? Really quick, just to get back to that, sorry I got off topic, and I'm off topic again, is your Second Amendment, if your military comes after you because your government became treasonous, well how or why? Because maybe we weren't paying attention, and now they can get us. And oh, but they have bombs and stuff, and we only have our little mere guns. Yeah, but there's more of us than there are of them. And our government, right now, with our military, they still do like us on both sides, all sides. Even though it's very dividing, our military isn't divided. There might be some bureaucrats and stuff like that, but as far as it is, our military loves us and we love our military. But there is a dumbing down of society, and some of those people might make it into the military one day, and maybe they'll be like Nazis, where they thought they were all doing the right thing, but they ended up killing a bunch of people and having World War II. Then they'll have to decide, go after their own people, or overthrow their government. Well, that's kind of like what's going on right now, right? If you're watching CNN, they think the coup is a really good idea. A coup d'etat? What is that? Well, that's when you overthrow your leader. Kind of like what the news on CNN right now, just like with when your military thinks it's doing the right thing, like the Nazis thought they were doing in World War II. Now in hindsight, we know that that was actually a horrible idea. But CNN and them folks and the Democrats think they're doing the right thing by ousting supposed leader. Well, they're a leader too. Okay? There's checks and balances. There's the executive, the president, and like we were saying before, then you've got the Congress, and it takes both sides of the Congress to impeach. Well, you're not going to get that unless if the Democrats are trying to gain Senate seats with this whole crap, because maybe most people don't pay attention. I don't think a lot of people are watching the news, so it can't be that. And then on the other side of things, the Republicans, which our first ever Republican for president was Abraham Lincoln. Remember Civil War? No more slavery after that? Huh. But there was Democrats down south. They were the ones with slaves. Democrats have been trying to get us back ever since. Look, for instance, Ronald Reagan, California, right? Governor there, actor. Look at California now. Well, Abraham Lincoln, Illinois. Good old sweet home Chicago, right? Now look at Chicago. Democrats come in and destroy. They already worked on New York. Now they're going to work on Florida next. That's where I'm at. And that's why this video is so important. Now there are some in the Republican Party that don't believe the same principles of small government, keep Big Brother out of your life, let you just kind of live your life, succeed or fail, a little small safety net. But really, if you fail, that's how you can learn to get back up. A lot of people now, they don't know what failure even looks like. They're calling themselves poor. I'm saying that there are poor people that have no other choice, but you can't really call yourself poor if you just maybe do come up with some money. You got a cell phone, but with that little bit of money, maybe you're buying apps or you're buying I don't know, expensive things that because you want to look like you're rich or something. When rich people are cheap, a lot of them they don't really brag about the money they have, and the money they have they invest in other companies and stuff like that, in real estate. And all those things come together that really does help other people out that may not have things. So, you know, if you're sitting there and you're upset like me right now because I lost half my business from my company, I'm not going to go around and say, hey, can I get a bunch of handouts? I would from a friend or family or something, but I don't want it from the government because I need to succeed. I need to fail to succeed. That's how you learn how to walk. So the real idea behind Republicans, and there are a lot of them out there that still hold true, is small government. And maybe that's going to reverse this whole global world order thing that George H.W. Bush finally made public, and then all the presidents who succeeded him. Until this last president, President Donald John Trump. A lot of people, you go, Donald Trump, they go, "Urgh." I'm like, have you seen a rally? No, but blah, 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 orange-haired man. Well, he's the first president in a long time that's not a globalist. This whole America First thing, he means it, but not in the way most people think. He's been going to the conventions for the Republican Party. He's been doing this, he's been doing that for a very long time. Hell, they even used to ask him on Oprah if he would consider running for president. And he was thinking about it, but he's like, only if I could win and if nobody else can do the job. See, as a builder, he's been fighting with his city councils and his mayor, and he knew all their names locally, like most of us don't know. And if you do know, congratulations. Maybe you should run for city council or mayor. You probably get elected if you have a good enough name, you got some fundraising behind you. So how's Trump gonna win? Well, he's a builder. Not only dealing with corrupt like governments and local stuff like that. For instance, we're going to get to Ukraine in a little bit. That's going to be when we get into the true impeachment talk stuff. And like I said, these are all clarifiers. See, like American steel, it used to cost a normal price, kind of like health insurance. And then when we started getting the cheap Chinese steel, the stuff's not as strong and it was cheaper. And so we would have less American steel to go around, and so that raised the prices. Kind of like I used to be able to afford my own health insurance, or my small job was able to get it for me. But then NAFTA was passed, 1994, so by the time I started working, guess what? I wasn't able to afford health insurance because most of the companies in Northeast Ohio started using a lot more temp agencies and quit hiring full-time workers, so therefore they couldn't give cheap health insurance, and the rates went up. And the temp agencies didn't offer health insurance, but what they did offer was low wages, and once you got to about 30 days or 90, whatever it is when you're about to get hired, you get pulled out of that company so you don't get hired, and they'll stick you somewhere else. So health insurance went up. The answer to it was more government. Well, government caused the insurance to go up, just like the steel. Dealing with cheap trade. President Trump saw this. We were about to go into what was called the Trans-Pacific Partnership, TPP, just like NAFTA, was going to give the same results, because now we have Obamacare, we had cheap Chinese steel, and that was going to be even worse. And all our jobs were going to all these other countries, which is fine. But the thing is, some of the stuff we have to be smart, because where are our strengths? Where is our business? So therefore we can do better. So many people sit in front of their big screen TV complaining about how they can't save for retirement. Think about that. Donald Trump or whatever, that's federal government. He can't save you from your decisions, but he can at least allow you to make the decisions. If you want to forego your retirement for a brand new car when you're 18 years old and a big screen TV and the newest Apple iPhone or Samsung Galaxy to blow up in your pocket, go for it. So for most people living their normal daily lives, not really knowing who their council person is, the mayor, having basically crap for news, which really doesn't tell you anything, the federal government that basically focuses on foreign ideas and our ideas via the globalism idea, we probably just don't pay attention to how slowly but progressively this has been going on. And by the way, after that constitutional convention, a republic if you can keep it, even the founders knew that it was going to take us to really try to stay informed. But it's difficult. Well, President Trump understood that too. But like our military, he still believes in the American idea of exceptionalism, that we are the innovators. People use airplanes to bomb other countries. We invented those airplanes. Isn't that crazy? They didn't invent airplanes. A lot of these countries don't invent really much because there's no incentive to do anything or they're not allowed. That's because most of them are socialist, believe it or not. The whole idea of we deal with democracies around the world, very few democracies around the world. We're the only one with the rights that we have the way we have them. It's an illusion if you think otherwise. Ask me in the comments below, I'll make a video about that if you want. But now the president sitting on top of his skyscraper, Trump Tower, watching all this stuff happen, going down for all these years, knowing the Clintons, knowing all these world leaders. Think about it. Have you had enough time to think about it at 1 second? Because he decided he could afford it and no one else could do the job and no one else was running that can do it. And he beat 16 candidates, now with the help of Russia. Actually, really quickly, let's knock the Russian thing out. Russia spent $150,000 on ads on Facebook. I don't even have Facebook. Okay, that's what they did. Well, guess what? Remember Benjamin Netanyahu from Israel? Our country, I forgot how much money, $400,000 or something like that. Barack Obama, he's on a TV saying that they were trying to oust him by colluding in their elections. Well, BB won anyways. And the Democratic Party was always aligned with the USSR. Like Benjamin Franklin, a republic if you can keep it, there was always one side pushing away from freedom and one side pushing towards freedom. And yeah, there's some Republican-minded people in the Democrat Party, and there's some Democrat-minded people in the Republican Party. For instance, John McCain, who just passed away, he was a straight-up liberal, but he just had the Republican hat on. Francis Rooney, my congressman here in District 19, that guy, he just said, I'm going to do just one thing, and I'm going to get out. Well, you should have told us that after we voted for you, Francis Rooney. You're supposed to be representing us. We're in the most conservative part of the United States, right here in Southwest Florida, and you just wanted to get one little thing done? Well, they're trying to impeach the president. But most people don't even know. So if he was to run again, Francis Rooney, he'd probably get reelected. And he might even vote for impeachment. Now, I don't think they're actually going to do the impeachment vote. We'll see. I think they're going to back off and do censure because the Democrats don't want this stuff to go to the Senate. And then there'll be a trial. But okay, so Russia didn't really do much. But there is Ukraine. So, Donald Trump's getting impeached. Did anybody really collude with him, or did he collude with anybody to get the election? I'm not sure all those people that went to those stadiums, 10, 15, 20,000 people, where the news doesn't show it. Right Side Broadcasting, they show panning the crowds. There's a lot of people there. The news will say, well, these deplorable people are a cult and blah, 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 blah. These are American voters. So, and you're going to impeach these voters by impeaching him. So why is he getting impeached? A phone call? About what? Ukraine? Gee, let's get to some nitty-gritty here about impeachment. While Donald Trump was packing arenas and kicking the crap out of a bunch of people with his high poll numbers, the other 16 people running for the United States presidency, from Rand Paul to Ted Cruz, all great guys and stuff. But while he was doing all that, Hillary Clinton's campaign was sending emails back and forth about getting rid of Bernie Sanders with the DNC, the Democratic National Committee. They're supposed to be unbiased. They had their own candidates, Bernie, Hillary, and I think there's like this one other dude. Well, they clearly didn't want Bernie to win. So that's like the RNC thinking, we want Jeb. It'll be Jeb, and the DNC is like, we want Hillary. The problem is, we have caucuses, we've got primaries. Let the people decide. But the thing is, we have proof, we don't have on the RNC side, but we have proof that the Democrats already had their minds made up on who their nominee was going to be before people even casted their final votes, before they can even nominate a person. Ain't that corrupt? Now granted, Bernie never got enough delegates anyways to beat Hillary, but that is kind of corrupt too. They have what's called super delegates, and so technically Hillary won by default because of super delegates. We'll get into that if you want to. Leave a comment about what is a super delegate, but you can always Google it, at least for now. So I guess getting down to the nitty-gritty, the fact that we know, oh, that was Russia. Russia's the reason why we know about the emails from the DNC about Hillary Clinton working with the DNC to oust Bernie Sanders, the socialist. But it wasn't the Russians. It's already been proven, but not many people talk about it. The transfer rate of the files was fast, faster than email can do. If you send it back and forth from Russia to the United States, it was the speed of a flash drive. In-house. Notice a guy got killed. I forgot what he was. He was working for the DNC, and he's just, boom, robbed, but nobody stole his wallet or his keys. Interesting, huh? Maybe he's the one who got the emails public. Maybe he was a Bernie Sanders supporter. He's dead now, so we can't ask him. Yeah, but then WikiLeaks was colluding with the Russians. Who knows? Everybody colludes with everybody, and we're going to get to that too. John Podesta's emails, that was hacked by the Russians. Nope. He clicked on a phishing link, the same crap that comes to your computer on your email, where it says to click here. You never click here in an email. You go directly to the websites. And he typed in his password on a phishing email. That could have came from anywhere. And guess what? He's an idiot. He clicked. He put his password in. His password was PASSWORD. Fool. Okay, so now you can independently verify all that stuff, but now you can look at this. Collusion. Well, let's see here. I don't see any collusion other than, if you could find the emails, Russia, the press will appreciate it, says Donald Trump. That's the basic collusion he said in front of a lot of people. On the Democrat side, Hillary Clinton was using a private email server from her house, unsecured, when she was Secretary of State. Russia reset, where basically 20% of United States uranium goes to Russia. Interesting. Democrat Party, they love the USSR, or at least they did. Well, they still do, because most people don't pay attention. Most people don't know what's going on. And then finally, the Steele dossier. That's right. So, the DNC, through Perkins Coie, which is a law firm, goes off and hires a British spy to go to Ukraine for a company called Fusion GPS to gather opposition research about then nominee Donald J. Trump. That's colluding with the British, that's colluding with the Ukrainians, and when they went and got their they got it from Russia. During this time, the Russians had invested $150,000 in political ads for Donald Trump and against Donald Trump, being for Hillary. Soaring division, confusion, discourse, the same that our country has done for others in getting into their electoral processes. Once completed, this Steele dossier gets into the hands of Perkins Coie, then the DNC. Also, John McCain hears word about this dossier. Dossier stating Donald Trump hired prostitutes to pee on the bed that Barack Obama slept on in Moscow after his pageant. That Trump's attorney, Michael Cohen, flew to Prague or something like that. All of it's been debunked or unprovable, all salacious. But John McCain has a copy, then Jim Comey gets a copy. At this time, Donald Trump's still the nominee, but he's getting daily CIA briefs, and he says, look, Jim, if you got something new, let me know. If not, I've got a good memory. I don't need the same stuff every day. Then Jim Comey says, well, the reason, sir, is we're trying to also protect national interest, and there's a problem. This dossier, Trump said, it's bullshit. None of the stuff is real. But, sir, it's still out there. And now Jim Comey has already testified that the job is done or something in that effect. I forgot exactly. Let's see. Mission accomplished, I believe it was, under oath. Why? Because then he can go to John Brennan or Clapper, one of the two, and say, oh, we can go to the press now with it because the president has been informed. Next thing you know, BuzzFeed, a crappy little outlet that doesn't handle anything big, all of a sudden gets this bullshit report, and now it's all over the news. And President Trump still wins anyways. He wins. He beats Hillary Clinton on his own. Doesn't look like Russia collusion to me. It looks like our government and the DNC and Hillary Clinton and all the rest of them and the news media tried to outsmart the American people. They weren't that dumb. I do believe that Trump said grab him by the whoop to that dude. And you know what? Who cares? I didn't elect Donald Trump by my vote because I thought he was a cool guy. I watched all of his rallies. I followed his entire life. I've read The Art of the Deal. And guess what? I'm glad the decision I've made. All this stuff, getting rid of NAFTA, which in a couple days, they're going to get rid of it. Have the USMCA. We're going to have our taxes this year are going to be a little bit better because since we can't afford health insurance, at least I can't, finally I don't have to pay that mandate. It goes into effect this year. So that means that I'll see a difference on my taxes. It was $2,000 more last year because I had to opt out of health insurance. So I had to pay $2,000 so somebody else can get health insurance when I was sick as a dog. A lot more stuff would have gotten done too. And the thing is, it couldn't have gotten done because the Senate, we didn't have enough votes during the first 2 years, but we had the House. And the House was kind of standoffish because they knew they couldn't get stuff passed in the Senate. And then the election happened where, let us say, the Democrats win in a landslide. See, Donald Trump doesn't have a mandate. Well, not really. A bunch of Congress people that were Republicans who had committee seats, well, their terms for those were up, so they'd have to go back to being regular old Congress people. And forget that, they're going to go in the private sector and make some serious money. And some other ones, just like John McCain, well, they had a little bit of yum, 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 yum going on with places like Ukraine. During Barack Obama's term, not only did they have that failed Russian reset button with Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, but also Barack Obama held aid money to Ukraine They never held any aid money. They never got any aid. And Russia annexed Crimea, which is in Ukraine. Remember that on the news? They stole back part of what used to be part of the USSR. And we just stood by and let it happen. Also, the country was a little bit corrupt, but they had a good prosecutor. And the prosecutor was looking into corruption because all these Americans, for some reason, are all over the place over here trying to help them clean up their corruption. And he's like, wait a second. Part of our corruption are these corrupt US people, all these bureaucrats. What the hell are they doing here? They're making all this money off of what? Gas, oil, big time money. You know, farting around in Iran, John Kerry was working on that Iran nuke deal, which once it expired, guess what? They'll have their nukes. So another thing Donald Trump did is got us out of that. But John Kerry's kid was asked about getting a job in Ukraine at a company called Burisma. You may be familiar with that name if you've been keeping up with some news. That's where Hunter Biden, Joe Biden's kid, got a job. $50,000 a month, yada, yada, yada. Also goes to Asia, something similar. Well, that's Joe Biden's kid. John Kerry's kid chose not to. But what is Burisma? Burisma was a company about to be investigated by this supposed crooked prosecutor, where you can hear Joe Biden on tape saying, we're going to hold up the aid money, $6 billion, that they were finally going to give to help Ukraine, if you fire the prosecutor. Well, gee, ain't that kind of fun when your kid's about to get a job at the place the prosecutor was going to investigate? Then, follow the money. They always say, follow the money. Well, that $6 billion, once it was released, because the quid pro quo, which always happens in politics, hi, we're going to give you money, El Salvador, but you have to stop sending migrants our way. Here, try some American policies, and that'll help you guys out, and don't kill your people and be like Venezuela, and then we'll give you aid money. Okay, well that's a quid pro quo. I give you if you give me. That's normal in all politics anywhere in the world. But in this case, the $6 billion mainly went to Americans who happen to be working in Ukraine. Our last governor election in Florida, it was Ron DeSantis, the conservative, who, by the way, is awesome. He's doing a great job. I was so worried he wouldn't get elected, but I guess a lot of people knew because he was focusing on the Hillary Clinton corruption with the email server and all that stuff, where Jim Comey basically let her off the hook when his job is to investigate, then hand it off to Lynch, the Attorney General, for her to come up with that bullcrap about the matter, which is what they called it, when really it was having classified emails on a server, then deleting 30,000 of them because they're emails to your husband, Bill Clinton, about wedding gifts and shit for Chelsea Clinton, when Bill Clinton doesn't even have an email address. How are you emailing him? But she did email Barack Obama. That's on there. What else did she do? A few other classified things. Whatever, let's get back to that some other time. Ask me in the comments below if you want to know more about that stuff. But the corruption. Biden is clear on videotape that the quid pro quo or the bribery holding up to $6 billion, or if not, you can ask my boss, Barack Obama. And it's also on tape. I'll have more power, I'll have more leverage after the election, Barack Obama, to the president of Russia, who is kind of funny because I thought Trump was the one that's in the pockets, the back pocket of Putin. Interesting. It doesn't work that way. It's a bunch of crap. So bribery. President Trump has known this for a long time. And once we got President Zelensky voted in, some TV star guy, he gets voted in as the president of Ukraine. Trump asked him to look into some of this stuff because that's corruption on our end and it's corruption on their end. And of course, if you're Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden, or whoever else, just like in Florida when I was mentioning DeSantis, we had Andrew Gillum, who was under investigation in Tallahassee. He was Tallahassee's mayor for going to Costa Rica and doing a bunch of crooked stuff too. So if you're going to be investigated and possibly indicted on something, run for office. Well, didn't work for Hillary. Well, maybe it did. But I don't think that Joe Biden wanted to run. And yes, looking into Ukraine, which will lead to all the stuff I'm talking about right now, it would also, yes, it would hurt a political candidate. But Joe Biden didn't have to run. He's just corrupt. Okay? And the guy is not fit. And just like they say Donald Trump is not fit. There's some things about Donald Trump that I personally like that people can't stand. But he gets his voice out to the people. He says it how it is. And the thing is, that's why he tweets. That's his only way to get stuff out to us. He can't do a 20,000 people rally every single day. And now they're going to try to impeach him because the exposing to the 14 or 15 people out of 300 million that even pay attention to this stuff. Well, there's a lot more than that. There's at least 60 million. And there's a lot of people out there, even like John McCain, now he has passed away. But a lot of these people's families, you know, what they do is once you get into politics, then you set up some kind of a non-profit, your wife or your kid or something, or you lobby, or people lobby you. It's all about fundraising. As soon as you get in office, you have to fundraise to get to the next election, so that way you can beat out your next contender or whoever is going to be. And with that, lucrative little options come up. So when you're investigating a country for corruption, and then you get your kid who, let's see here, he was busted for smoking crack at a strip club. He was a drug addict. He was kicked out of the Navy for what? Cocaine. And he's 40-some years old and never. He was 40 years old, I just swore. So, but I don't want to re-say all this, so sorry about that. Beep. But he was 40-something years old, never did a darn thing in his life. He was a loser. Now he's making $50,000 a month. Biden can say, well, yeah, to keep the tab on that company to make sure they're not corrupt. No, it's because you wanted to get rich off the corruption, and that one prosecutor was going to expose the corruption in a country that wanted to get rid of corruption. That's why they ousted their president in an election, and now we had Zelensky, who President Trump was trying to get to the bottom of all this because it affected the 2016 election because of collusion that the Democratic side was doing and rigging an election by getting rid of Bernie Sanders. Let the people decide, and now they're going to go and do an impeachment 1 year before the election. Think about it. This is because either they want to gain seats in the Senate, or because they think that people are so dumb and they don't pay attention. Just like the House of Representatives, they would not have retained it if these people didn't retire. But a lot of them that retired, again, personal reasons, or they wanted to go to the private sector, or they were out their committees and they didn't want that lucrative just be a regular old congressperson job, so they're out, or they're in on this crap too and they're trying to get far from it. And then you got guys like Andrew McCabe, which I can get into too, and all these people, Peter Strzok, Jim Comey, all the rest of these people are busted, but they get jobs on CNN as commentators and stuff like that. Well, guess what? If people watch those channels, they think, oh, McCabe's a nice guy. Well, no, he's not. And there's a lot of people like that, unelected bureaucrats all over the place. And they basically say, well, Donald Trump impeachment is foreign policy. He's going against the interest of the United States. Foreign policy, he's the commander-in-chief. It's his foreign policy, not the State Department's, where all the corruption is, and that's the swamp that needs to get drained, at least a part of it. Also, the other part, okay, so that was abuse of power, I believe they're calling it, which is going against the interests of the State Department when he's the commander-in-chief. Well, that's not impeachable. And looking into corruption, kind of funny. There sure seems to be a lot of it. The other one is obstructing Congress, not obstructing justice, because the justice is the Justice Department, which is the executive branch, which is what Donald Trump is in charge of. They are in charge of the legislative branch, and the judicial branch is in charge of looking at the Constitution and understanding if that applies to whatever is in front of them. So with the legislative branch, obstruction of Congress, their subpoena power is worth crap. He can say yes or no whenever he wants. There's no due process with that, only in a trial. So both offenses are junk. So I'm thinking if they do go for impeachment, a lot of people don't pay attention or don't know or already have their minds made up. So it's not going to gain voters or lose voters. What's going to happen is, if there's some corruption in the voting out there, which we already know Donald Duck likes to vote, and Dead Aunt Agnes likes to vote, and all the rest, it might give a couple more seats in the Senate, which you have 2 federally for every state, and they would like to get the Senate back to the Democrats. The Republicans might want to go and focus on the Senate and House of Representatives and get the Congress back. And then we can at least have Donald Trump do more things. He's been a lame duck president now for 2 years because of all this phony investigation stuff, because people don't want to get busted. So therefore, they're putting party and not wanting to go to jail or whatever over their country. And the thing is, party over country and not want to go to jail over country, it's kind of some BS. And now if President Trump now comes out and says, hey look, we have all the evidence of this corruption, now the news will say, now the president acting like a dictator again. He's arresting his political foes. And a bunch of people are going to get ticked off. So we need to get people awakened, folks. So now the Democrats don't want the true impeachment, because then it goes to the Senate, to where a lot of the facts will come out, and then some Democrats and liberals will pay attention and they might learn something, because it's going to come out. And then after this IG report, like how the news says, oh, see, there was no bias, there was a bunch of bias, and it's just not reported that way. The press is not going to report the Senate trial stuff too much. And so, you know, we'll see what happens. But it might pull some voters to the Republican side, because Trump's been bashed since he started running for this election. And then finally, if they don't vote for impeachment, which is what I'm thinking, so that way it stays out of the Senate's hand to where really the formal stuff happens, because there's a trial, they'll just go for censure. That way, we censured the president, and then we're going to impeach him again if he does something else. And of course, they're going to find something else to impeach him on, something a little stronger than the bullcrap hearsay versus facts. There's no facts that Trump did anything wrong. I just laid out to you a bunch of facts that Trump did everything right. So, censure. It's like a little blip. And then, because they already know he's getting reelected, then they're going to go for impeachment and stuff like that over and over again if they retain the House of Representatives. Basically making his next 4 years another lame duck to where nothing can get done, because stuff has to pass in the Congress first before it can make it to his desk. He can't just do executive orders all day. So China, Russia, the Democrats, the news media, they're all banking on after that next 4 years of Donald Trump, then nobody else will be strong enough to run. So therefore, just ensure that nobody gets busted for all the corruption in Ukraine and everywhere else, and then they can get back to turning this country into a communist country, where then we'll get to AI. So I'm about to go and edit this video and put it online, and you shouldn't have any doubts if you're a man, a woman, a transgender, or whatever. I'm not going to get into all this stuff. You're an American if you're an American, okay? E pluribus unum, of many, one. So we are one country with one people. And if you're here and you're a documented immigrant, it used to be you'd bust your butt and, you know, to get the American dream. American dream isn't buying a house or a cool car. It's about the pursuit of happiness and just being happy. Ever hear about a normal little family? They live on a budget, but they go to school, they go to work. If they're happy, that's the American dream. If they're not happy, they strive for a little bit more. Then if you find that you have too much stuff and you're not happy, well, then you didn't really achieve the American dream. You just bought a bunch of stuff that you can't take with you when you die. So this is an experiment, this laboratory states, and it's an experience. And the American experience can only be achieved if you go and get it yourself. Don't rely on schools, because those are unionized. Those teachers, don't impeach the president.